Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today for the first time in quite a while, Amanda Suffecool. She is one of the people behind Eye on the Target Radio. Amanda, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, no problem at all. Thanks for having me. It's been a little hectic for a while. I actually forget which way I have to move so I can center myself on the screen. It's been so long, man.
Well, today is going to be a busy, this week is going to be a busy week for news in Second Amendment stuff. Today kicks it off with the big thing happening in Second Amendment news is the start of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is today. And today kicked off with jury selection starting. And from what I know from a very fast news search before we went to air, the only thing I can see is everything starting off a little bit slowly in Wisconsin. Do you have any further information about what's going on than I do?
Well, I think that we need to kind of go backwards just a little bit. One is I think that this is a story because, one, they're seating the jury. But two, I think that this is a story because I'm not sure that it will actually fully get to trial. I think that the signs are all there to be prepared for the fact that it just may go away. And that so let's talk about those signs. So right now the prosecutor is we'll use a technical term, he's having a cow about the fact that the judge got involved and said that he cannot call the two people who were fatally shot, cannot call them the victim.
In the opening statements.
Right. So the judge, I'm going to go to this article, a CBS News article. A Wisconsin judge presiding over the upcoming trial has ruled that prosecutors cannot refer to the three people shot by the teenager last summer as victims. However, the defense may refer to them as arsonists, looters, or rioters if they can prove that they participated in these activities. And guess what? There's video abound all over the place. There's also a spot where the judge says that they can quote the police officer who actually had an interaction on police camera with Kyle Rittenhouse before the shooting, where the officer thanked him and thanked the other protectors. But they cannot say that is the thought process or the belief of all the police, just of that officer. And so when you start to look at this, it is that they cannot paint the looters, the rioters, the whatever that group of people was there for, whatever that purpose for them there, they can't just call them the innocent victims, the bystanders, because they actively were not. So there is that. But at the same time, it does not stop CNN. Well, we'll just call them the criminal news network. But it does not stop CNN from writing an article that talks about getting to know the three men that Rittenhouse shot. And you read it and it's like, it is such, well, pablum would be the polite term, but it really is warm and brown and comes from a cow. So that's really what it is as you go. But okay. So
I have a friend that likes to use the term crock of cheese.
It's a crock of cheese. There you go.
Couple of comments I want to grab here quick. John Petrolino checking in. Hey, John, we're going to be getting him on in the next few weeks onto Polite Society podcast. William Brown, and he's had this. We're having issues with YouTube closed captioning. There is an instant closed caption. For some reason, I select it, and then because I don't go in and select it every show, you're supposed to be able to select it. It does the closed captioning, and then it stays that way. I keep forgetting to check every show. William just keeps
saying,
happening.
hey,
Yeah. Hey, where's the
he's
closed
like,
captioning? I select it, and then it should be done.
well,
And
since he does not know what the heck you're talking about, you have to type it back on the feedback because otherwise he can't
I'm not going
redo
to do
it.
that live. I can do one thing at a time after my stroke. So,
Exactly. So William Brown will address it. We'll
yes.
just say that will be the kind and polite. Yeah.
Charlie Chambers, right on point. The three attackers that went after Rittenhouse were felons, as well as the one that the famous picture of the guy that got the shot that had the big hole in his arm. Below that hole in his hand was a gun, and the guy was a felon in possession, clearly, of a firearm. So
the interesting part is CNN says that he was holding a handgun, but he had his hands up as he was running at Rittenhouse.
yeah, he had his hands up all right.
Right. Yeah. Whichever. And it's a tough place to talk about because you feel bad that people died, but you feel less bad about the fact that the aggressors, the people who started it, were the ones who succumbed to their injuries, as opposed to Rittenhouse. In the one case, the girlfriend is talking about how her boyfriend he ran forward to save everybody, and he just happened to be carrying a skateboard under his arm. Well, when you look at the videos, he is using it as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's so it's just, if you want a little humor, pull up. It's I can't say how you say her last name. So this was updated at 12:57 today, Monday, November 1st, from CNN, and it's Christina Maxouris, Maxouris. But you need to read it because you want to. Well, our friend Dan Waz is really, really good at breaking down what the media is where they're trying to direct you or redirect you and those types of things. In this case, even those of us who are not good at it can read this and be like, what a steaming pile of poo.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I really am convinced that they're going to negotiate this away, or they're going to drop the charges, or that. I mean, it's a shame that Kyle Rittenhouse has just become a name across the country that everybody knows. And so you really don't want to be those kind of people. You don't want to be famous. You don't want people to know your name because of something like this. I mean, think about what Monica Lewinsky has to live with, George Zimmerman has to live with. You look at those circumstances, and they are famous or infamous for the rest of their life. And that is what Kyle Rittenhouse has been subjected to be also.
Absolutely. Stephen Douglas says that skateboard to the head is a deadly weapon. Absolutely it is. And I want to expand on what you were saying just a second ago, Amanda. These people, the people you just mentioned, and Rittenhouse, are never going to get a job for the rest of their lives. Nobody is going to hire them. Even a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Walmart, they are not going to want them on staff because they're going to have constant threat of.
There's conflict.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I don't know that the companies will not hire them, but it will be a consideration. It definitely will be. And it will change their lives from this point forward. I mean, anytime that you use a gun in self-defense, you become famous in your own neighborhood. It's when they pick you up on the national news and hold you up as the bad guy before you get to court. That's when everybody in the country gets to know your name and gets to know the stuff that happens.
Our buddy Charlie Chambers says, I'll hire them. There you go.
Because I think it's a challenge, though. It really is. And they will, if they're not careful, I mean, maybe you even change your name or truncate your name, or, when you're applying, it's you modify Kyle to your initials, that type of a thing.
Right. We have another person checking in. This is going to be our guest on Wednesday. Teresa's going to be coming on talking about, and on Wednesday is going to be SCOTUS hearing the New York State Rifle Association versus Bruin case. That's the oral arguments. And Teresa's going to be checking in on the Daily Bullet that day.
The other thing that just came across is the fact that Dick Heller and Heller number 4 case has been filed. And so he's doing a press release at 8 a.m. either tomorrow or Wednesday on the Supreme Court steps. And so Heller is going to kind of roll that out. So in the interest of what is going on, he's making hay while the sun shines, if you will.
If I'm remembering right, this lawsuit, isn't this that their ghost gun ban is too poorly written and too wide, and that the ghost gun ban outlaws Glocks, for example?
So yeah, it is that it is, and it outlaws anything, frankly, manufactured before 1968 that may not have a serial number because it wasn't required, but those then meet the definition of ghost gun. It also is anything that is hand built, and so for generations we as Americans have built our own firearms. I mean, think about the Kentucky long rifle, the Pennsylvania rifle, those types of things. I mean, American history is forged on the fact that we are talented people who have that ability. And so as long as we have that ability, we should have the ability. So as long as we have the technical ability, we should then have the legal ability.
Totally, absolutely agree. The only thing we're doing with, and let's be honest, we're using technology in some cases, and meaning the 3D printers, to help with some of the more mundane parts of it. Anyway, back to the joblessness issue. Stephen Douglas says that if he had a security bodyguard company, he'd hire them. But let's. I mean, Rittenhouse has said his goal before this whole thing was, what he wanted to do with his life is he wanted to be a police officer. I'll guarantee you his law enforcement career is down the toilet.
It really depends on what they're going to do with this case. Because if they drop it, then there's nothing to stop him. It will be harder for him.
With the exception of his notoriety.
With his notoriety, right. Yeah, it will be harder on him because he will have to have more restraint in the use of a firearm than any other officer that would be on that force.
Absolutely. But talking about other, Zimmerman was just another guy. He wasn't looking to be in law enforcement. He was just another dude who happened to
lived in his neighborhood, right?
Yeah. No law enforcement connection. Wasn't trying to be law enforcement. Just wrong place, wrong time, trying to be a good citizen, and life happened, and he got involved in something he had to fight his way out of.
Well, you look at it, and that set the neighborhood watch back probably 25 years. And
Yes,
it wasn't because he was wrong, but it was because the press picked it as a symbol to drive the point home.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something else. So I it's going to I really think that the judge with this precursor that says that they are not allowed to use the term victim, I think that says so much about the judge's mindset prior to seating the jury.
I really hope so. And I hope that your prediction that this never gets to the jury, I hope that's true. Um, I really,
I mean,
really,
think about it. They're doing it up there. How, if we know who Rittenhouse is, how are they going to find an untainted jury?
well, 12 people that lie and say they've never heard of it.
Or 12 people that are so unaware that the only thing that they do know is what the Kardashians are wearing tomorrow.
Do you really want those people on your jury? I mean, come on.
I don't think you have a choice, even though they really are not your peers. Yeah.
Robert says that kid needs to join the military. He was very poised in an extremely chaotic situation. Yeah, he kept his head.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely.
Right. Well, and they keep trying to make it a deal that he went across state lines with a long gun, and it was like you do realize that he lives straddling the border to the point where he went across state lines to get an ice cream cone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's make a deal of that, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's not only the press, George says. Zimmerman was railroaded by the prosecutors and false testimony. His trial was totally bogus from the beginning to the end, with the exception of they got the verdict right.
Well, the interesting part was the press started. Yeah, it is not only the press, but the press started because what do we call him? We call him Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Why do we call him Zimmerman? Why, and what do we call the other party in that case? That's a question.
What the hell is the other?
Trayvon, right? Tyvon,
okay,
Trayvon.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Martin, yeah.
Okay, but we don't call it Zimmerman and Martin. We don't call it George and Trayvon.
Okay.
We call it Zimmerman, and I think that they called him a white Hispanic, right? Because they were trying to sell it as the white dude killed the black dude.
Yeah,
and the child.
When the black child was a linebacker, friggin' huge guy.
Well, they were, but it really is back to the media picked the winners and losers in the very, very beginning. And it was all set up in there, and we've bought into it to such a case. I mean, it's sort of like when they coined the phrase assault weapon or smart gun or whatever that is. When we reuse those terms, but we too call him Zimmerman. We too call the and I want to say victim. I want the thug. We call him by his first name, right? You know that he was actually moved from one neighborhood to another because he kept getting in trouble, right? There's all this kind of stuff.
Go where the police don't know your name, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Pop this one up there. George Keller says, in California, some of us go across state lines to buy gasoline. I feel for you, man. I really, really do.
In California, I would think you have to go across the state lines to buy pretty much anything because they're using everything in taxes to subsidize. Yeah.
Tim says Rittenhouse was defending himself after He asked the police for help.
Police for help. Mm-hmm.
And then Robert says, they did the same thing with us. Hands up, don't shoot. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again,
Exactly.
like I said, they could say hands up, but I'm betting you the hands were up like that. I'm just betting that's how the hands were up.
Right, but the Michael Brown case where they're like hands up, don't shoot, and everybody got to hear it, or the gal that we're supposed to know her name or say her name, and the police were looking for her felon boyfriend. You know, so there's so many things that when they change the narrative and they put it out there, it really is. And this applies to anybody who's a concealed carry holder. The first guy to the police, the first guy to the press, the first guy to tell their story gets to tell the story. And the second guy has to defend that story.
Yep. Tim, absolutely right. Tim Cook says Michael Brown was a thug. He was. He was inside that officer's car from the waist up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, oh, no. Mm-mm.
Charlie Chambers. Love Charlie, man. The White House pushed the local DA. They thought it was a white guy with a Jewish name. Turns out George was Hispanic and stood his ground legally. He had great representation, a great case study, and learned from the facts.
Well, and that's interesting. The other part that comes out of that whole thing is, did you just hear, I have an itch, sorry.
Yeah.
Did you just hear from that Zimmerman has said that he has told his story for the last time he's done?
Has told or is going to be telling. I don't know which it is. It's coming up if it's not happened.
Yeah, there's a date.
Yeah.
So it's either it just happened or there's an event, there's a date, and he's like, I'm done. That's it. I do not want to be labeled by this for the rest of my life. So
you know what? I get that. I 100% get that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I had an incident myself in Nebraska several years ago. As a matter of fact, in a roundabout way, that's how you and I met. You interviewed me for your radio show.
Right.
I did several interviews. I've continued talking about it, but I absolutely get what George Zimmerman is saying. That at some point you want to make a name for yourself by doing good, not by what happened that night. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't the things that happened to me. It's the reaction that I had from those things and the person that I am underneath and around those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Get to a couple more comments. Stephen Douglas says, now in San Diego County, there's a proposal for a mileage tax, which is really, that one burns me as a former trucker. I can get into that another time and not on something that's about gun rights. But
I think that you see the reason why, because they're trying to do that in defense of the fact that they're trying to then force all electric cars. And there is no other way than to do it. So you see that, because as soon as they figure out how to fund it, then they're gonna shove that one down your throat. So just know that it's a multi-part series that's coming at you there, Stephen.
Yeah. George Zimmerman is a Platinum Plus member of the George Club. George Floyd was asked to resign from the club after his first felony conviction.
There you go. Georges unite. Can we be an honorary George?
I don't know. I suppose it's possible. Well, we're at 24 minutes, so we got a couple minutes left. What else should we be talking about today, Amanda?
Well, I think you all know that I'm from Ohio, and that Ohio is the least brave state of all the states. And so Ohio is right now, the punchline that I tend to use on my show is that Ohio is proud to be number 40 in all the states in whatever's happening, right? Wait for us. We're catching up. And so they are somewhere not quite at 40, but looking at constitutional carry. And so that's pretty amazing, because how many states currently have constitutional carry? Somewhere between 16
21.
and 20, right?
21, okay. I think, have it.
Okay, so 21. So Ohio is like 20 states ahead of where they typically are. And I'm so darn proud of them because of that. But constitutional carry, so if you are connected to Ohio or have friends who are connected to Ohio, get them to contact their state reps and say, get off your duff and try to make Ohio actually stand for something in advance.
We just became honorary Georges. George Geller says, everyone who supports Second Amendment is an honorary George.
There you go. So now my name is Amanda George Suffecool. Got it. I'm good.
And Charlie Chambers wants to know, any SCOTUS Wednesday 2A case comments? I've been noticing in the media today, as I started doing show prep for this, that there's a lot of news commentary and a lot of mainstream trying to read the tea leaves ahead of oral arguments Wednesday. They're already saying, look for a partial win for the Second Amendment. Okay. That's what they're trying to say. Now, if they're saying ahead of oral arguments, look for a partial win for the Second Amendment, I'm saying, based on reading tea leaves off of other people reading tea leaves, look for a home run for us. That's
right. Yeah, because they're trying to rotate their audience to a little bit of you're gonna take this one and not necessarily like it. So get prepared ahead of time. Sort of like what we were doing with the Rittenhouse case. Get prepared ahead of time that it may change the whole dynamic of what's happening. Yeah. So it should be it's going to be a good week, I think, for Second Amendment stuff. It really is. And when you start to really look at it, we've got some stuff happening in the Supreme Court. Then we've got some other interesting cases. So the Supreme Court is actually looking at something that goes with the EPA and how the EPA interprets. They don't pass laws, but they interpret laws. And when you really look at that, once they make a decision on that will, I believe, will have a pushback into how the ATF interprets. No, doesn't pass laws, but interprets laws. So there's really right now a lot of different things that are happening that will tie back constitutionally to the First Amendment, to the Second Amendment. And so there's a lot of little strings, cats in the cradle kind of things, tying one thing to another, and we're going to see that reverberating through the systems.
Absolutely. Well, we are down at the bottom of the hour. It's time for us to shut this one down. Amanda, thank you for joining me today.
Okay, well, I have one thing to say to everybody. If tomorrow is an election, in this election, in a lot of states, in a lot of places, it is all about the judicial candidates. They are typically nonpartisan case candidates. So go to your local party's web pages, Facebook pages, whatever, and look for a connection and get their recommendations, because if you're not in the court system, you don't know a good judge from a bad judge. But we really need to make sure that we have good, solid, conservative judges, because then they'll hear the cases that we want to have heard. They will make constitutional decisions based on that, and they will not make knee-jerk leftist, socialist decisions, if you know what I mean.
And I'm going to say, especially if you live in New Jersey, especially if you live in Virginia, go vote tomorrow and vote for freedom. I'm not going to tell you what party to vote for. Vote for freedom.
Right. That's it. I agree with that.
All right, folks. I'm going to go ahead and shut this one down. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Continue tuning in 5 p.m. Central Time, every day this week. Thanks for watching the Daily Bullet. We'll see you tomorrow.